to say the next one.
So we're up to 13. We're now looking at 12, are we?
We're into 12.
No, I haven't told you my 13.
Oh, this was the controversy.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, we
we
purposely did this because it's Iron Maiden.
Self-titled.
Self-titled.
In at 13.
And I knew when we even started this thing how much you guys, before even going into it, revered this record because of what it stood for.
The songs on it, man.
The 13 for me is Iron Maiden. I've got 4 tracks that I like, really.
Which ain't bad. Similar to some of these other albums we've discussed.
4 that I really like. Doesn't mean I don't enjoy listening to the others. Yeah. There are no skips on it, so don't worry about
skippers.
that. No. We've had a couple. Obviously, The Angel and the Gambler and Unbeliever, I would happily skip each time.
I'll just go in because it will come up, Smithy. Skips was something we sort of discussed. Yeah. It helped us with our rankings. If there's tracks that we sort of skipped or edged towards that FF button, kind of went into some of our rationale for some of the rankings.
It becomes a huge discussion point for me as we hit the top 4.
Like it.
Yes.
And it also...
The difference between...
because there's even a skip up there.
The difference between 2 of my albums in the top 4 was one song that I just don't play it.
I love the fact you've said that because my 1 and 2 hinges on one skips track as well.
Yeah. I think we're going to do it. It's going to be amazing.
It's mental.
Mine's 2 and 3, I think. 2 and 3, there's a skip track that stopped 3 getting to second place.
That hinges your placings. Love that.
But, well, let's just say again that the word skip isn't literal meaning. Because Chris had this worry that we were skipping tracks and not listening to Maiden. But we mean, in essence, like you would listen to the track, but if somebody said to you, listen to this or whatever, but you're going to have to move along.
Yeah.
These are the ones that you could move along on.
For sure. And let's cut to the chase. We're well versed in these songs.
Yes.
So these are songs we've listened to 100,000 times.
Yeah.
We know what we're listening to. So there are a couple of times where I'll get on to the next one, you know?
Yeah. You know what's coming, and because you don't have to wait for it, and we've not got a needle, we're moving on a record, you can just go ping, and you're there.
Precisely. Yeah. So we're in at 12.
Okay.
Lamo?
Fear of the Dark.
Fear of the Dark at 12.
It's got to be somewhere,
Yes.
I suppose. Oh, no, yeah.
Mess up.
My 12, and I think I don't know if this means we can discuss it. Book of Souls.
When did you have Book?
13. It's a discussion point.
It's a discussion point. Book of Souls.
But
do you want to go into that before I reveal my
12 for a bit of continuity
my 12.
for our listeners?
So Book of Souls. This is an interesting one, right? And this is the one, boys, that I texted you only yesterday on my drive home. I've been listening to this album the last couple of weeks. Smithy's just glanced over at my pile there. This was also a record that I told you to revisit.
Yes.
And it was for the worse. I've had a similar journey.
Oh,
with
no,
this
you
record.
haven't.
Right, so don't reveal it because we know what it is. We first of all discuss Book of Souls, then we'll get to discuss yours because it's hit its place.
Love that. Book of Souls.
Book of Souls it is.
It's a great record.
It's a great record.
There are some crackers on this.
It's a killer record.
I'll go straight in by saying there are 2 reasons why it is lower down my list. I'll say 3 actually. 1, it's too long. But 2, it's made too long by Empire of the Clouds.
Yes.
Nice.
It is a magnificent Bruce Dickinson solo song that belonged on a solo album.
Yeah.
And it just pushes this too far to me into it's too long territory because it takes it from 70 to 90 minutes. So that's too much for me. But the song itself is incredible. And the third reason, and this is what happens with a lot of these modern Maiden albums for me, production. I find this a little too boring in the production department. They're not using different sonics on the guitar tones, the bass tones, the solos. This seems very samey to me, whereas you listen to Final Frontier or Senjutsu, and I think they've got some nice production tweaks. Solo sounds are different. You know, guitars have different effects and bass effects, particularly on some of it. I don't find much on this. I find it a bit of a long slog because the production makes it sound a little samey to me.
Ooh,
Just don't get into it. And yet it's still Shirley and Harris for now the 5th album.
Yeah, I've made this point before, and you sort of touch on it with the production. Is that there's a big difference for me between what people talk about progressive Maiden and what I counter argue is it progressive or is it repetition?
Yes.
Because there's a difference between musically progressive and vocally challenging and all what comes with it, and repeating a chorus for 3 minutes out of a 7-minute song. Do you know what I mean? So that's where I agree with the length of some of these tracks as well.
Yeah.
And this idea that Maiden are these progressive giants later in their career. I think that's true for parts of these records. We're in 2015 now, by the way. I think it's true for some of this post-millennial Maiden that they do have that progressive hat on. But I think it's quite a lazy label sometimes when actually they're just quite simple songs, but quite repetitive. There's still bangers all over this.
Oh.
There's choruses that are tear-jerking, but I just wanted to agree on the length of the album being
definitely.
a bit of a hinge
92 minutes. 92 minutes.
Yeah.
Double CD.
It is a
And
double.
my argument is the same as yours, but not. I suppose from the Bruce perspective, I hadn't thought of it like that. But for mine was always that you've brought Empire of the Clouds out a month or so before the album comes out as a free track on
I think it's a Metal Hammer Flexi.
Metal
Sounds
Hammer
like it,
Flexi
yeah.
or 10-inch or something like that. So you've already given that, and then you've sandwiched it on the end of the album. Now, if that had sat somewhere else, I might have thought it wasn't an afterthought or whatever.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like they had a 70-minute album, and they thought, oh, we've still got some space left on that CD too. Just chuck Empire of the Clouds on the end of that then.
Because if we were talking about that song now and harking back to it, which was, what's my math, 6 years ago, we'd probably be talking about that. It's a fantastic song. We'd probably be bumming it even more as this legendary one-off single that they released.
That's exactly how you do it in the digital age. You have it as a separate single, or if you put the package together, it's, I don't know, put a triple vinyl out, and the third disc is Empire of the Clouds and an etching. Put the album out, and you've got Book of Souls.
It was a mini Seventh Son
Book
to
of
throw
Souls
out
on
there.
one CD then, 77 minutes.
Yeah.
Then you have Empire of the Clouds, like a bonus EP or something.
Yeah.
That's what you do with it. You
Yeah.
get it on the head. And I've read somewhere, don't ask me where, a lot of Maiden magazines and stuff upstairs, that it was added to the album.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
that's what I mean.
So
It
that is pretty
feels
much...
But I
like
think
an
it actually was, and
afterthought.
I'm not going to go on record to say it's definite, but I have read somewhere that either critics or someone, people wrote this article, thought it was bolted, or they may have specifically said it kind of just got put on the end.
Yeah.
Jarring, heavily jarring.
Interesting.
Oh, what a track! It's massive. I mean, you can talk about it now. It's so layered. It's so moving.
It's got a Fear of the Dark vibe to it,
It's-
like the lovely build-up,
Yeah.
the big sort of crescendo.
Quite
It's
loud,
like,
quite loud.
when it gets to the soaring solos and the exchange of the solos between, like, you know, Yannick and fucking Murray, it's just insane. Like, just the building up,
But it does not
doesn't
feel
sit
like a
on
Maiden
Book
track.
of Souls.
Maiden use these interesting intros for a lot of their songs, where it might be picking acoustic, piano, weird stuff.
Yeah.
This goes on for a long time with the piano bit up and the orchestral stuff, right? But it never lifts off them like a Maiden track should. There are guitars, but they're still fighting for their place. The soloing's great, but it is literally it's a solo track. It's something that should have been earmarked for Bruce's concept album.
It's well concept,
and it should have been the launch point for another
concept
Bruce
piece.
solo album. And it's like, I've done it. I'm in Maiden. You're gonna have to use it. So, I don't know.
Which it may well have been.
Harris thinks
Bruce
he's
is
going
going,
to
I
walk.
want-
Harris thinks
I
he's going to
want-
walk again because if he doesn't get this great thing on this album as part of the complete package, who knows?
Exactly.
But it's just, again, it's that horrible Maiden paradox that happens. The song that is so incredible. I mean, they say epic, don't they? Right? Some people talk about the length of a song is epic or the feel of a song.
Yeah.
This is all levels,
Yeah.
musically, emotively, lengthwise, it is the definition of epic in
Absolutely.
all ways.
This is progressive. It's not
Yeah.
Bingo.
repeated
That's
choruses.
them ticking those boxes there all those years ago when they were like almost a punky band
Yeah.
that loved Wishbone Ash.
Yeah,
And they were ticking boxes with that,
yeah.
but it doesn't sit on the end
And
of
it's
this
not
album.
Harris, is it? It's Dickinson.
Is it just
Just
Dickinson,
Dickinson,
on his
that's
own?
the point. It's not even a Harris co-write, which is where it's that jars onto the bottom of the album again. It's such a shame because it knocks it several places down my list, yet it's not for a bad song. That's the real sickening bit. It's not for a bad song.
This raised on my list. It
Ah.
came up through the bottom.
Because you had
through
quite
the
a relationship
dredges.
with this, didn't you?
Now this
This
goes
was
back
cool.
to 2015. Now 2015, you've got Motorhead bowing out. Is it
Yeah.
Bad Magic?
Yeah.
And you've got Slayer have done Repentless or Relentless, whatever it is.
Endless.
Relentless. Ghost brought out Meliora. Now Ghost were my focus for that year. So they had the concise classic rock album that was fit on one CD.
Yeah.
Could be performed live and you can still see another half hour of classics. What Maiden did was they released 92 minutes of... They released a film as a CD. So the whole year that this was out, I wasn't that interested.
Yeah.
And I went to the Book of Souls tour because I needed to see Maiden, needed my fix. And I enjoyed the tracks live. Because I hadn't connected with the album, I just didn't take much away from it. So I was there for the classics the whole night. So, you know, like, as long... And stuff like Death or Glory
Yeah.
live, you know, that pricked up an ear.
What
Didn't
a
listen
track.
to it for a long time until we actually went through this process. And then if you remember, it started off like above X Factor and it was at the bottom. It was in Dance of Death's place,
Oh, was it?
basically.
Yeah, you really struggle with this one.
And it
didn't you?
remained there until Speed of Light. Like, I cannot get enough of that tune. And then
Really?
all of a sudden...
Was that the lead-off single from
Well,
the
this-
album as such?
This is better discussed at Fear of the Dark, but we'll touch upon it now. The Kings, mostly, of the lead-off single. And even in our digital age, where there isn't an actual physical single, which they stop at the final frontier,
Yeah.
this Speed of Light, again, is up there. You know, you've got Wicker Man, you've got Wildest Dreams, you've got Benjamin Breed, you've got Satellite, so you've got El Dorado, and then this. And then Writings on the Wall, St. Jutsu, they are the kings of that opening track.
Knowledge.
They really are.
Yeah.
And like I say, digital age, it doesn't really matter anymore. You pre-order your album on whatever your streaming service you use, you get it in your box, and there might be some tracks they release of it. But if you look at it old school,
Which
It's
we
a
do,
bit-
by the way.
and Maiden do videos for these. They do make a bit of an effort to make it
Yeah.
a lead-off single. Yeah, it gets you right, really knowing that album should be a cracker. And yeah, Speed Light's great.
It's not that I don't like If Eternity Should Fail, but it was just that it's a track opener when you're dealing with a band that has done like Somewhere in Time and what was it, Aces High and stuff like that.
Where Eagles Dare.
Where Eagles Dare, like, and things like that.
I mean, they're the king of the opening track,
Yeah,
aren't they?
this I felt If Eternity Should Fail didn't sit as a great opening track for me. Now I love it.
Yeah.
If Eternity Should Fail, it's just so good. And it warmed to me, and it crept up, and it crept up, and it landed at 12
I think
on my
that's
list.
a decent ranking.
And I've even said there, you know, I've even reminded myself that it's yo-yoed up and down, but I think its placement is fair now for me.
That's good.
12's a good place.
I think that is a good place for
I
this.
don't listen to Tears of a Clown. I think Tears of a Clown is the worst song that Iron Maiden have ever written.
Right.
Ultra Skipper.
Complete ultra skip. This one is
Bomb.
an underlined skip. I will not listen to Tears of a Clown because his voice, it's cringing me out.
Okay.
It's not a
I
great
don't like
track,
the
yeah.
song.
Fair enough.
It's a weird song because the album's so like sort of like dark, and then you've just got this Tears of a Clown. Seems a little bit.
Terrible song title.
It
for
seems
starters.
like it seems more like autobiographical than the rest of the album.
Right.
It's almost like-
lyrically, it's very subpar for Maiden lyrics.
Yeah.
Even when Maiden hit the fantasy stuff, which some consider cheese, or the repetition of the war motif with things, Aris does one of his historical pieces. there is a certain lyrical quality from all of the writers that sit up there, apart from when it gets a little banal around No Prayer for the Dying. Unfortunately. Yeah, exactly, yeah. And I think we'll get to it again around the time for No Prayer for the Dying, but we can talk about Bruce's solo album at that point.
It's going to be a little while off for No Prayer for Me.
However, getting back to
Can't
this,
wait.
you're talking about that lyrical thing again with Tears of a Clown. Yeah, it's a very weak lyric for me.
It's a Smith Harris effort, that particular song, just to throw in there.
Really?
Weak lyrics.
Oh, and I've got some big ups
Smith
for
Harris.
Smiths in here as well, but like,
Rightly so.
yeah,
Just sort of throw
Not
that
that
in there.
song.
Yeah, strange one.
I really don't like that song, as you know.
Yeah.
So already you've got an album where I'm not appreciating that they've put an 18-minute song on the end of the album. I'm not fully appreciating the structure of the start of the album.
Yeah.
And then you've got a track like Tears
you've
of a
got a
Clown
track
that
in
I'm
the middle.
definitely going to skip.
So it's
So it
17 from the off, isn't it? It's the
Yeah,
bottom of the list.
it's crept up with the redeeming qualities, because luckily for them, even without that music, I've still got a 60-minute album.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that's why it's worked out 12, because
Yeah.
I've still got an hour.
There's
from
enough of it still
yeah,
there to...
exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Again,
okay.
last phrase for the
Like
podcast, no such thing as bad
Maiden.
Yes.
It's almost a like Partridge-esque quote, that,
It
isn't
is,
it?
isn't
No
it?
such thing as
Yeah.
bad Maiden. Right, that was your 12.
And just for historical reasons, not much happens around here. Bruce,
No, go
obviously
on.
Bruce goes through his mouth cancer, and that's a huge thing that we're not going to go into because it's nothing. But there's nothing going on. There's no single releases. There's Book of Souls live standard now. You do a tour, you do a live album for Maiden. It's the same since Brave New World.
The artwork's almost the same as well. The same sort
Yeah, I
of like DVD case size books.
Turned on the side
Yeah.
slightly. Obviously, the Legacy Tour kicks in after this album and this tour, which is a big thing for the band, the Legacy Tour. It's huge,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is still not complete because obviously COVID starts. And so what's interesting is this is a huge step back. It's bigger than Somewhere in Time, Somewhere on Tour,
Yeah,
because that
right.
encompassed just a 3-album cycle.
Yeah,
This is Legacy. The Legacy of the Beast Tour is everything.
this is anything goes.
And it's theatrical, isn't it? You know, it's off the chart production. It makes Kiss look like they're playing at your local venue with a couple of sparklers kind of thing.
I know. I was lucky enough to witness it,
Yeah,
wasn't
you
I?
see, yeah, and that
I
for
wasn't.
me
I wasn't at the early ones. That
is
you
all
were
that
at.
goes on in this period. Is that, you know, it's significant for the band internally with Bruce's illness, but it's legacy now.
It's business
They've
as usual.
understood what they stand for now. You get your little shorter Book of Souls World Tour, then your Legacy
Into
Tour.
the hits.
And that's kind of where it's at. You can indulge yourself playing more of the modern, more of the Book of Souls, because you know they'll come back 4 months later and just see all the hits
Sure.
without any of the Tears of a Clown inside.
Yeah.
Very clever. And
You think Death or Glory, though? Come on, boys.
Yes.
it is very clever from them, and they're on a cycle, sort of, over that decade really, where they'll knock out an album, solid tour, and then do a sort of retro tour,
Yeah.
if you like, a retrospective. So interesting tactics, but again, it just gives them that longevity that we're going to touch
And they're
on.
not a heritage band. They're not.
No.
They're
No,
not one
no,
of those
no,
ones
no.
that are just going out. I mean, Kiss have been one for donkeys. They've got 2 new members of the band. They did 2 albums with these members of the band, even though it was under the old makeup, which was questionable. But then it just stopped, and it was just they are a band that just play the hits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and Maiden have got that element, and they're still bringing out incredible albums and touring with that new material. You can't ask for more perfection as a band or as a fan. Goes back to why we love Maiden. How do you tick both of those
Best
boxes?
of both worlds.
Another person, just off topic slightly, who is amazing at this is David Coverdale with Whitesnake. So although the voice isn't,
I love
What a
it.
left field.
Quick segue into White
the
Snake.
voice
The
isn't
cuff.
there anymore, right? It's not
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
pretend.
yeah.
However, in the last decade, I think it's 3 original albums, all of pretty decent quality, and then reissues of the old stuff that are
The reissues are
attention
brilliant.
to detail.
Yeah,
They're
I have to
packed
say.
to the
Really?
gills, these things, for fans, and they're all uniform on your shelf. So he goes out and plays the hits. He's doing incredible reissues for those fans, and then he's got new albums. He's the only one I can think of that era, like Maiden, who perfectly. I'm not just a
Segues
heritage
between-
fan. I'm still making music.
Yeah,
We're still
yeah.
making music, but we know what you want
I'm gonna
really.
give you
Unless you're an
both.
Uber fan, we know what
Yeah,
you really
yeah.
came to see.
I have
So
big
have some of that.
respect for bands that do that.
Not many can pull it off though.
No.
Well, not many
Not
have got
many.
the new material to
No, this is the only reason that we're able to discuss Maiden.
100%.
They're still current.
100%.
Yeah. 100%.
So Book of Souls.
Okay, so
let's put
12
that to bed.
12.
So my 12, which we're gonna deep dive into now. So we're into deep dive territory, really. This was one that I messaged you while driving home from work yesterday. It's dropped 6 places. I told you 5 yesterday. It's dropped 6.
Off the radar.
It was really high on... Probably on the backing in my head of some sort of... I don't know what it is. I just held it in a particular light.
For a long time.
For a long time. And when I really... I've played it a lot the last couple of weeks, like from start to finish. And probably my high ranking initially was based on what I've realised is only 3 or 4 songs. So by default, how can it sit in a top 10, top 8, top 6 scenario? And it's Dance of Death, boys.
I can't believe it.
And just
I'm
to
blown
review,
away
Dance
by
of
that.
Death
just
has
to
really
review, you had
taken
Dance of Death at
15.
and I had it at 15.
It's really taken a dive. As much as it irks me. Number 12, Dance of Death.
So what are your standout tracks then? Because this is a big one for
It's
you to
got
discuss.
some bangers.
I can pick 5 as well. That's the funny thing with this.
Give me them 5.
So my favourites that I will play and enjoy are Rainmaker,
Great song.
Montseeger, Dance of Death
The
itself,
track, yeah.
New Frontier, and Facing the Sand.
Yeah,
But
nice.
there's 3 that I think are absolute stinkers.
What are they?
And
'Cause
they are skips, and they're No More Lies, No More Lies, Gate of Tomorrow, which might upset you,
Very much
because
so.
I know that's a classic.
It really
and
is.
Journeyman. Don't
The
like the acoustic
acoustic
end,
number.
the acoustic outro out.
If you saw them play that live though, because they do they do a DVD straight on this tour.
I just don't connect with it.
No mention of Rainmaker, lead single. You didn't mention it in your...
first one.
Sorry, Wildest Dreams, sorry. No mention of Wildest Dreams.
Wildest Dreams,
And
no.
also, none of you have mentioned the best track on this album,
What's that?
Passchendaele.
Oh no.
Oh, what a lukewarm reception to that.
It is a good
Which
It's a lukewarm.
I'm not as lukewarm as Mr. Lukewarm. You're right. It is a good track.
Which I respect, but come on.
Passion.
Let's rewind.
Okay.
With 2003.
We are.
Oh my god.
This is sort of... I like to think a lot of
This
Maiden
wasn't gonna get a
albums
look
come in little twos. So
This is the other half of Brave New World, isn't it?
2000, Brucey rejoins the band.
Yes.
They kick out Brave New World. I've got a feeling we're going to discuss that record quite a bit later on. 3 years later, they're straight back on it with Dance of Death. So Brucey's done his comeback album. They've done like tremendously successful, both from an artistic point and a monetary point and business
And a critical
wise,
point, and people just couldn't get enough of them.
2 years of just fantastic tours for them. They've backed up what we consider to be a very, very strong album of Dance of Death. Same producer, Kevin Shirley, co-producer Steve Harris, but he gets it right, I think, on this.
A cracking first single in Wildest Dreams. It is a great classic Maiden single. I know you didn't put it on your tracks on the album.
I do like it.
But I just think it's that same thing we talked about on the previous album. It's a great single. Gets you straight in.
Is that the one?
Yeah.
Twin guitars.
I'm not
from the off.
No. But I love a twin guitar, but it's
there.
I don't know if... Is this the only album they've done analog? Because that's something that I
mean, apart from the
to.
actual tape days.
No, this is going to be one of my reasons why it's low in a minute.
Go into it, Lammy.
It's just the same problem again. I don't like the production on this. I do not like it.
Is it thin? I remember it being quite thin.
It's thin. The guitars have got none of that crispness that you always talk about with Maiden. It's interesting again.
Sharp.
The other thing that I can't stand this on this album, I hate the artwork. It could be done better on paint on a PC than this.
I'm going to hold
like
it
bloody
up.
Alice in Wonderland. Like, what is that?
Never mind the concept. It's such poor quality design for computer PC Eddie. It's a digitally PC designed Eddie. That's what I can tell. I don't think it's been drawn. I think there's none of that beautiful
Oh,
artwork.
yeah,
level
so,
to it.
yeah.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
I mean, we're presuming that Eddie here is like the Grim Reaper in the middle, right?
It just looks so crap.
It's got like a baby with a mask riding a fucking dog, right? It's got there. It's
Look at
got
the neck
this
with the dog
guy,
as well.
some child, I think, with quite a sinister little mask.
Is it a chimp?
Oh, I don't know
Or a
what's
bat.
going on.
Who's that guy?
It's bizarre. It is bizarre.
That's
It's
the
got a sort of
worst that
feel and a theme, but
My
it,
biggest criticism to start with.
it's awful,
But that's,
isn't it?
you know, again, it's like, it's not Book of Souls in quite the same way, but I don't, whereas Book of Souls, the longer, proggier stuff is made a bit boring by the samey production. I just don't like the production on this. After the crispness of Brave New World, classic sort of Maiden sounds going back to the day as well, I do not like the production, and it really puts me off, despite the fact you've mentioned between you 3 or 4 incredible songs.
Yeah.
And they are amazing. They made the live sets, and the, you know, performance-wise, can't fault it. Bruce, I can't fault it, but I cannot get past the production or the cover. Add that to a few songs. You know, we've said it's got about 10 tracks on it. We've only really mentioned 4, maybe 5 that we would like. So it's
half marks.
Yeah. So for me, that's why it was right down on the list. I just cannot connect with it. I love that first single. I can't connect with it at all.
I'm going to bash the production a bit more while we're going to really put it in the grave. In that 3 years earlier, they come out with Brave New World. I'm going to go into this later because I think we're all spoiler alert. We're all a big fan of this record, and it sounds incredible. I think I've had it on my earphones. I've had it in the car. Just on a shitty CD player, you know, on good systems. It's a fantastic, it's clean, it's crisp, it's heavy, it's amazing. Same producer, all same musicians, different studios. Shouldn't fucking make a difference in this day and age. We're heavily into the millennium, same producer. I think they're the biggest difference between 2 albums that come very close together in terms of production.
Maybe in the whole catalogue.
One's, I think, one of my favourite sounding albums sonically. This is, definitely one of the worst.
Because what follows this is then Fire again. But we'll get to that later. Yes.
But again...
But you believe this is recorded analogue, you said earlier. You believe you've read that, so that makes a huge difference.
Well, it was the only reason I know that is because when we were going through this listening process, I remember thinking to myself, this is going to be a hard album to revisit because I didn't like it the first time I heard it. And when I kept going back to it, I just kept telling you there was something about it that didn't seem right to me. I just couldn't click with it. And it didn't make sense that it was sandwiched between like 9, 10 out of 10 albums. And you've just got this one anomaly in the middle that, like, it's the same era, the same period, same lineup, same crew, every fucking thing, and it sounds different. And that was the only thing I could find.
Yeah,
was that this one was recorded analog, and obviously that's the only difference I could assume. But the songwriting, it doesn't lean to anybody different, does it?
Not so.
It's not like this album they then lent on Gers more than anybody else.
Yeah.
It's the
you've
same.
Got the same mix. You've got the same balance.
I don't get it.
I like the way we've gone into the production a bit more of this, rather than maybe just go through the songs or whatever. Going back to the album before it, sounded fantastic. The album after it, Matter of Life and Death, sounded fantastic. I've just looked to my right. Matter of Life and Death, which comes after, was done at the same studio as this. Yeah. So the album after it, which is even better comparison,
that's quashed.
Everything's the same. Not one variable is different. And Matter of Life and Death sounds... It's a very heavy album and a bit murky, but it's crisp and it's heavy and it's clean.
This for me is a deal breaker in these 6 latter era Maiden albums that we'll do from 2000s. The production is really big for me, and I don't give a rat's when we get to the Di'Anno versus the Dickinson era, and I don't really think too much. It affects me a bit with the Blaze era, but there's a lot more stuff going on. But I don't have this problem with the original era with Bruce, with production issues so much, even though there are a lot of differences.
Yeah,
sure.
But it's a really huge part of it for me to connect with the later albums and where they sit on the list. It can nuke an album for me, the bad production. And yet you can listen to some shitty recorded bit of garage or some murky, horrible stoner, whatever it is, that is a million times worse produced than this.
Of course.
But there is still something that connects you with it. This just is a huge barrier for me.
Yeah.
And I can't explain it any more than because it just doesn't make a lot of sense in some respects.
Well, Clutch did it with Blast Tyrant with the whole Pro Tools
What a record,
thing.
and I hate it
And
so
it
much
splits,
at the same time.
it splits fans because it's that, do you go Pro Tools or don't you? But
That's right.
I love it, absolutely love it. But this, it just missed the mark. And it makes no sense. Hearing you say the components just infuriates me a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I do still sit here singing Munseeker.
Yeah.
So, it's not that there's bad songs on there.
Well, just to
I think the biggest problem is it's followed Brave New World.
Yeah.
It's followed Brave New World, and
issue.
it's got another two absolute
corkers.
corkers.
My
So
God.
Matter of Life and Death, Final Frontier.
There has to be a run in that litter of those first 4 or 5
got,
comeback albums. So around the time of this, then we talked about Wildest Dreams as the first track. They did a No More Lies limited EP was the third single.
All the songs.
With different
Same
versions,
line
like
for 5 minutes.
Orchestral version of this and a slightly different version of that.
7
But
minutes.
they also did single releases for Number of the Beast and Trooper in this period.
7
Which
minutes.
because then we start getting the History of Iron Maiden DVD comes out at this point. So there is definitely a little bit, because we had the Death on the World Tour, then you had the little Eddie Rips Up the World Tour, which is the start.
It's the first 4 albums, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I saw that at Leeds Festival.
And it's really the tour for History Part 1 DVD.
Right.
So there is connecting with the part. Brave New World's Wipe the Slate Clean, but the toe is beginning to be dipped back into the past a bit here, the concept of it all. And it's just interesting, these single releases combined with History and the Eddie Rips Up the World
I'd just
tour.
like to touch on that, because I think at this point, they're getting a new generation of fans at this point as well.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I think that's why sometimes they do the dip backwards a little bit. I totally get the theory of dipping back a little bit wherein they're in trouble sometimes, and almost making up for stuff by going, remember when we were untouchable? You know. But I think also, similarly at this point, they're picking up whole new generations of fans. So fans are getting into Maiden with Brave New World, with this.
Yeah.
So
but if
they're also going, new kids on the block,
Yeah.
check out Peace of Mind as well.
The other thing with this is that it's that perfect balance, isn't it? You pick up the new fans, the absolute valid points. You want these new fans to understand old Maiden, maybe try the old album.
Sure.
But if you just resell that to all us old fuckers, we're going to go, well, we know all that, so that'd be clever. So you do it, you do the History DVD, you give a hardcore lesson to the fans, which then the young kids will get the attachment of the early albums and understand what Maiden were, what they stood for, where they came from. But it's not so dull that the old fans go, I'm not going to watch that. I know, actually, I didn't know that bit. Oh my God, there's Dennis Stratton in a pub.
Yeah.
So you're both still spending money. You're both still investing in that brand.
Genius.
One person is going, oh my God, I love Dance of Death. The others are going, I'm not too fussed about that, but look what they're giving us.
Yeah.
Like you say, Dennis Stratton in a pub in London.
That History DVD is just watchable, especially with the bonus stuff.
Listen, you won't get this weed dealing that this podcast will give you.
Yeah.
Great point. You know, it's just, they're so clever. They're
genius.
They're clever businessmen. Some of these musicians as well.
I hadn't even thought about like the way that you're seeing this trend in the harking back. I hadn't even thought about that.
But then, just to put this in perspective, Kiss do things like this, where we've got the recent Destroyer reissue, which you're paying money for basically recreations of old Kiss Army packs and memorabilia. Right? There is nowhere near enough content in that for £200 or £300 in terms of audio and the presence. So, when Kiss do anything, there's an element of feeling like everyone's going to fucking buy it, because they just do, but really what Kiss are doing is they're really exploiting you.
Yeah, they
They're
are.
milking it for for money they don't need, for reasons I can't understand, but they'll do it because everyone will buy it.
Yeah.
Maiden are different. They go down the approach of wanting to get some different product out and appeal to the fans, but they give something to the hardcore fans while serving the purpose of enlightening the new fans. Everyone wins, but you don't feel like it's just something you've been given to fleece you again. Maiden are cracking at that. This respect for the fans, whereas Kiss are just like, yeah, well you're going to buy it anyway. We are doing it for you, but we know you're just going to clean us out of it no matter what it is.
Do you know what I like with Maiden? It's like Senjutsu is a perfect example, like you're saying there. They bring out Senjutsu, standard CD's $9.99. Give us £3 more and you can have this lovely set. Yeah. Now Kiss say, give us £7 more and you can have one of 4 lovely sets. So you can buy the same CD 4 times. But if you're a real Kiss fan, you're going to want to buy all 4 variants.
Yeah.
And it's that fleecing thing that I really detest, despite the fact that, I still love Kiss.
Exactly.
But that I love with Maiden. Maiden care about the fans.
There's a little bit more integrity there, isn't there?
There is.
A lot more integrity there, I really do think that.
Anything more to add with Dance of Death, boys? Are we going to move on?
I would just like to say that this year was the year that the Mars Volta blew the world away with Deloused in the Comatorium.
Nice.
And there's moments in time where I think albums need to be mentioned, and I think that's a snapshot. You've got Dance of Death coming out, but again, my eyes and my ears are completely focused on this Deloused in the Comatorium.
Sure.
Because it's just...
Was that the first one?
Yeah, the balls to the wall, nuts, absolute insanity.
Amazing.
Progressive freeform jazz wank rock. It's just incredible.
Crimson all over the
it's
place.
It's worth pointing out, you've got in the room here, in Shed Force 1, 3 big music nerds.
Yeah, big nerds.
We like a lot of music, and we know what the fuck we're talking about, and
pretty much.
Quite a vast taste in guitar and drums based music.
It's wide.
So
very
love it.
Okay, so Dance for Death has been
done.
On the pile.
It's gone.
That was our number 12.
12 was its highest.
Joint 12 we had.